Ciao and benvenuti to Untold Italy. I'm Josie.
And I'm Katie, and we're here to help you plan your trip to Italy.
Between us, we have many years of travel experience, and we want to help you uncover your own, as yet untold stories and adventures in Italy.
Each episode, you'll hear practical advice, tips and ideas to help you plan your own trips to the magical land of history, stunning landscapes, and a whole lot of pasta.
We'll have interviews from experts and focus on local destinations and frequently asked questions about travel in Italy.
Thanks for listening and make sure to subscribe to our show.
Now let's get started on your regular dose of Bella Italia. Ciao and benvenuti to Untold Italy. I'm Josie.
And I'm Katie, and we're here to help you plan your trip to Italy. In episode 4, we're giving you the inside scoop on eating in Italy. Yes, it's our favourite topic and the best thing to do in Italy.
I love food in Italy, Katie. In this episode, we hope you will learn what to expect, the when, where and how to avoid the tourist trap because, Katie, trust me, I have really been caught in that, what to order and how much should you budget for food.
Fantastic. Well, before we get into the bad meals, which I can't believe that, Josie, really, I'm shocked. Let's start by telling everyone what our favourite meals in Italy have been so you can get an idea of what to expect from the food in Italy.
So many choices. Favourite. I love anything seafood, so I'm going to say a seafood marinara, but I do say in Rome, the carbonara is my favourite from Roscioli.
Oh, Roscioli. I had a life-changing sandwich there recently. It was so good. So I also love seafood, and one of my favourite meals was in Santa Margherita, Liguria, and it's on the Italian Riviera. And yeah, the scampi pasta, oh my gosh, I'm still thinking about that. But I think the place where I've had the best food in Italy is actually Sicily.
Yeah, I have to agree with you.
Oh my
The
goodness.
arancini, the granita, everything.
Everything. It's just so good and so fresh. We had a seafood platter there in a place called Alla, just on the coast, and it was about 10 euro. My husband and I just looked at each other and went, "Oh my goodness!" This, it was in abundance and it was so fresh and delicious. It was beautiful. And then we had a delicious salad, which, you may not think of Italy for salads, but this was a blood orange, fennel, red onion and caper salad. And I'm not joking. I keep thinking about that salad all the time, especially now as we're coming into summer here.
Yeah, I think that definitely Sicily, and we were talking about it when we were in Puglia as well. The food in Puglia is amazing. The bread, the arricchetti, the sauce, everything. Amazing, amazing, amazing. I can't even tell you. If I have to pick a favourite, I'm not sure I can. But I think it's the way, and I say this to my husband, it's the water, it's the land, it's the sun. The tomatoes, I don't think you can taste a tomato salad like you've had in Italy.
No, I agree. And I think, sometimes when I go there and I have a tomato and I think, oh my goodness, I can't even remember that a tomato tasted like that. It's got the sunshine in it. And there's just such a big respect for ingredients and what's local to the area. And I think that's a really important thing about Italian cuisine that people need to know is it's actually very regional. So you can, whatever's popular or whatever's good in Lombardy or up near Milan, it's very different to the food in Sicily. So
it's because what's available. So there's a lot of history behind the way the food, say from where we came from Calabria, on how we made, depending on what was on offer, how they made it, how the pasta was made, because did they have flour or did they have potatoes, or what did they grow? So everything's about what locally they grew. And then it becomes from the past, it's just got so much tradition and the way they make things and how they make it. Because really, a pizza in Napoli is different to a pizza in Calabria, which is different to a pizza in Puglia, which is different to a tasting pizza in Milan, because everything is a little bit different. It's all about local food. So we're going to be showing you this. And what do you think, Katie? I mean, food everywhere is amazing.
It really is. But I think, the best thing to do is just to, when you're going to Italy, you just got to have an open mind and also just try different things and see what you think. You might prefer the pizza in Rome to the pizza in Naples. You might prefer the pasta in the north, which has got more buttery creamy sauces to the pasta in the south, which is more tomato based. Who knows? But that's just part of the adventure, I think. And I just love, that exploration.
But Katie, I have to tell you, it's not always good.
Oh, no.
Look, we made a mistake, and I think it's about also not going to the first place that's so touristy. So what we've learnt was we were tired. We just saw this place and we thought we'd go in, and it was just not where we needed it to be.
What were the alarm bells like? If you look back on it now, how do you know that it was not good?
So my daughters have told me, don't go to a place that has photos at the front.
Right.
Which is true, because I think we just picked a place that was easy access and it had photos, and it just wasn't right. And it was just in a tourist area. So really what we needed to do was walk a little bit further, walk around a little bit, and even check online or ask the concierge at the hotel what is a really good restaurant.
Yeah, I think a little bit of research goes a long, long way. It does happen when you're tired and you're wandering around Piazza Navona and you're sort of like, I need something to eat. Or even in Florence, around the Duomo area, like there's plenty of like fairly questionable places to eat. But, if you just go a few streets back, you'll be able to find some gems, and I think that if you research or if you're adventurous, you just head a little further away, you can definitely find those restaurants that you've been dreaming about, really. I also like going to the markets.
Oh, the markets are amazing. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
And it's not even if you're going to be buying fresh food, which it's so fun to explore like a fresh food market in Italy, and some of the really good ones. I like the Testaccio market. That's in Rome, but it's a little bit out of the way. But if you want a market that's right in central Rome, the Campo de Fiori market.
Oh, Campo de Fiori is great.
Yeah, it's fun. And it's not just the market stalls, it's actually the shops around the market. So you've got some salumerias and some, bakeries, a forno, where you can, buy slices of pizza. And that's the really where you can taste some really great food. So another awesome place, which I recommend, it's a bit more upscale, is, have you been to Italy?
Oh, I love Italy. We went out of our way and caught a taxi in Puglia to go to the Bari, Italy.
Yeah, so it's just like, it's basically what it is. It's an upscale food market where they've gone around Italy and selected the best producers of the cheese, the pasta. And in Rome, I think it's got 2 floors of restaurants where you can, go and try them. And that was really fun. I really enjoyed that.
And I think for the first timer as well, there's one in Florence that we went to, and we went there every morning because we could have our breakfast, and we'd buy a €1 coffee, espresso, which was really reasonable. So I think it's definitely a great place to go. And it's also where you can get your water bottles and stuff, just fruit as well. So we would go and get our fruit for the day if we wanted it.
Great. Well, the other thing that I like to do, and this is I'm kind of obsessed with this, and I've done so many in Italy, it's not even funny, but I like to do a food tour. A really smart idea is to do a food tour as soon as you get to a city, and that way you not only get to taste the local dishes, but you also, usually the best food tours actually, they will tell you places to eat after the tour. So you don't have to do all that research yourself. They'll tell you where to go and where to try the best whatever is local in that area. So I've done food tours in Rome, Milan, Bologna, Venice.
Oh, wow.
Naples. Actually, Rome several times. And you just always learn something new. And I think the really good thing about a food tour is you don't just learn about the food, you learn about history and culture, and you have just a potted culture lesson, and plus you get to eat and drink wine and just have a great old time.
I've never really done one, so that is definitely something that I'll be doing on my next trip to Italy, a food tour. Can't wait.
Yeah, it is. Look, it's really good. I think, maybe people don't know what to expect, but...
Yeah, I don't know. Tell me, what do you expect on a food tour?
Well, usually you would go and stop at maybe 5 to 6 or 7 or 8, depending on how long the food tour is, places, and you'll go and they'll explain a bit about the provenance of the food, or where it's come from, and if it's so they might be showcasing some cured meats, and they'll tell you about the animal and how it's been prepared and how long it's been aged for. So similarly with cheese.
Okay.
In Bologna we saw some people making pasta, the fastest pasta makers I've ever seen. They were making tortellini. It was amazing. And, and then you go around tasting all little bits. Now, you don't go on a full stomach because it's not advisable, because you get a lot of tastings and they're usually very generous, and they usually finish on gelato, which is always my favourite. But yeah, I find it really a great way to get to know a city, because especially in Italy, food is such a big part of the culture that, it's ingrained. So everything that you do, wherever you walk around a city, you're going to learn about the food and how it relates to the local culture.
Great. Well, I will definitely do a food tour next time.
All right. Well, I've got a few recommendations actually of food tours, so I'll pop those in the links in the show notes so that people can see the food tours that we did if they're interested in doing that. But it's a really good way, especially if you're nervous about going around and ordering new dishes or, trying restaurants. It's a really good way to introduce yourself to the local food culture.
Yeah, that sounds great. So I think something we do need to talk about as well, Katie, is meal times in Italy. They're a little bit different than what we do here. And I know that it took me a few days to get used to eating at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, but it is very normal. So let's talk about breakfast and what we expect from that as well.
Yeah, so I guess a typical Italian breakfast is not what we would have in Australia, which, everyone eats different breakfasts here in Australia anyway. But I guess when people are on vacation or holiday, they maybe like to get a big egg-based breakfast and, with lots of toast and eggs and bacon and maybe fruit. I don't know, but that's not what they have in Italy.
No, and I think, a lot of the stuff that they do is very seasonal to that area too. So if it's fruit or it's, I call it dry toast. They don't really have toast like we do with butter and that. But I do say, coming from a hotel background, that if you are staying in any of the global hotel chains, they do have American breakfast. We're talking about a smaller area, or if you're doing Airbnb and you're going out to a bar area, or different Italian hotels would have sort of different breakfasts to what you're used to.
Yeah, so I mean, you're really a typical Italian breakfast is a coffee and a pastry.
Correct.
Yeah, which I actually really enjoy. And it's that time in the morning when you would have like a cappuccino or like a milk-based coffee, and it's, it's small, it's fairly light. Well, if you think pastry's light, but come on, we all enjoy a pastry every now and again if we can, and it's one of the life's little pleasures, and it sort of eases you into the day for, maybe the main event, which is lunch or dinner.
Yeah, and that's really important. So traditionally for an Italian, a lighter breakfast and a pasta for lunch.
Yep. And I think that's, like we have a totally different meal structure, I think, and so therefore our heavier breakfast probably makes more sense. So before we move on to lunch, how about coffee, Josie? I think
I love coffee.
I love coffee too.
So Katie and I were talking about this the other day around coffee, and again, this is one of those things that you learn as well. So when we were at the Vatican, I said to my husband, I want to sit down and have a coffee. Well, can I tell you, that was expensive. So again, be prepared that there's different ways of getting a coffee. If you stand up in a bar and you ask for an espresso, it is going to be cheaper than you sitting down in the bar. And if you are in a tourist place like the Vatican or anywhere around that, and you're sitting down, you're going to be paying a little bit more than you would for an espresso just standing at a bar.
Yeah, and I think the classic is Piazza San Marco in Venice, where people have been charged exorbitant amounts for meals. But I think part of it, I think that coffee is €7 there or something or 7
like
or 8
that. Yep.
euros. But you know what? In Piazza San Marco, you're actually not just paying for the coffee, you're paying for the experience. There's a band and, it's an amazing square, So I choose to think of that as part of the experience, and I'm happy to pay €8 for the coffee and sit down and enjoy it. And I'm not going to get sort of disappointed because I know that's coming. But if you are on a budget or you just don't want to pay that amount for a coffee, then be aware that you should probably just head to a small bar around the corner and have your coffee standing up.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that's something that every time we travel, it's a big question that people or comment that they made that they feel that they've been ripped off by coffee. But I don't think you're ripped off. I've got to say that's the best coffee in the world. It does not matter where you have a coffee. The coffee is amazing.
We used to, when we were living in the UK, we used to drive from the UK through France down into Italy, and this is a bit of a secret. Well, it's not a secret, but please, if you're French, please don't get offended, but the coffee in France is not that great. So as soon as we get over the border, I was like, I need a coffee right now, and we'd stop and get a coffee. But I think as well, we've got a lot of American readers and listeners, and I think it's important to explain what is meant by coffee, because it's very different in Italy
Correct.
to American coffee.
Correct. So I have lots of family in New York, and they talk coffee. So it's more of an American coffee is more water-based, longer coffee. So it's more of a dripulated coffee. Whereas the coffees in Italy are espressos, and they're like from a percolator. So it's more condensed and longer. If you want longer, you'd need to ask for an Americano. And you might even need to ask them what different coffees they have, because for them a coffee is an espresso, which is a very short, darker, concentrated coffee that comes out of a machine or a percolator.
Yeah, and, it's strong and it's good. And, I encourage you to give it a go, really. So it's one of those, it's an experience that's part of your trip to Italy. But if you're not into that, you don't have to be. And as Josie said, you can have an Americano or maybe a cappuccino. Now, a lot of people say that you can't get a cappuccino after 11 a.m. And I kind of want to talk about that, because you can get a cappuccino.
I've never had that.
Oh, well, but I don't think many Italians would have a milky coffee after 11 a.m. And the reason for that is around digestion, is that they believe that milk doesn't get digested so well, so they prefer to have it in the morning while it has a longer time to digest. I don't know. That's what I've heard. And but I think, the coffee is different. If you're going to go looking for the coffee that you have at home, unfortunately, you might be disappointed. I don't know. Have you seen, I don't know about the different non-dairy milks. Have you seen, I think I've seen soy milk. But
I've seen soy. I haven't seen any other ones. But not to say that I haven't been since June, so there is different updates and different places have different things. So I would just ask the question, but be open to experience whatever they had.
Yeah, I think so. So after we have coffee, then it's time for lunch. Hooray.
I love lunch.
What time do they have lunch in Italy?
My auntie would serve lunch at about 1 or 2.
Yeah. Or even, so maybe from 12:30.
Yeah. 12:30, but it depends on where you are and what you're doing. But definitely later lunch, because you have a later dinner. Mm-hmm. And my favourite time is lunch, the aperitivo hour, and dinner. So I think you're right in the middle of my favourite food. So
all of the above. And what can we expect at lunchtime?
Anything really. And I think this is where, as travellers, be ready to experience. So if you're in Rome, you definitely can sit down and have a plate of pasta. No problem, right? Because that's definitely something. But you can also just go to a deli and get a fresh bread roll and make yourself, and they've got a whole heap of mozzarella, ham, different cold meats that you can have, cheeses, so they can make that up. Yep. So I think you can have anything. You can also have in certain places arancini, which is like a croquette, a rice thing. So there's lots of different things you can have. You can even just have a tomato salad, really, if you want to sit down. So I don't know, what have you experienced? Because you can also have the pizzas.
Oh, you can pretty much have anything. And I think one of the big misconceptions is that Italians eat 3 courses for both lunch and dinner and every day. And you know what? If you want to do that, go right ahead. You can definitely do that. And I have done that a couple of times, not every day, but, of course, you've got to enjoy, it's part of the food is part of the journey, really. But I think that you don't need to eat 3 courses for every meal, and you can just enjoy what you want to try. And there's no need to order a pasta and a main. You can have just a plate of pasta, as Josie said, or you can have like some antipasto, some cured meats, and some or you could have a main dish, which is usually like meat or fish and vegetables. And, you can make it as light or as heavy in sort of Western sort of talk as you want. You can have salads, whatever you want, it's a very modern place. The only thing I would say that you can't get a lot of is anything that's non-Italian food.
Yeah, I agree. I think you get a lot. Italian food is easy, but if you wanted, say, a different cuisine, that you would find harder.
Yeah. If you want a Mexican, you're in the wrong spot. Yeah. Which is, for Australians, we can get pretty much everything, but in Italy, you can get Italian food. So just embrace it and enjoy it. After lunch, there's a bit of a break, and I usually go for a gelato. That's my gelato time. And then that gets followed by aperitivo,
which is my favourite time.
Oh, I do love aperitivo. So why do you love it, Josie?
I think it's the time of the day when you're travelling, like you've been going. So we usually just grab something quick on the way for lunch because we want to go and see something. So come that 4 o'clock, we just want to sit down wherever we are, whether it's near the Spanish Steps or, anywhere. Like, honestly, I think we even last time we sat up at Villa Borghese and we sat there and there was a little cafe and we just had an aperitivo. And again, it's just I have my Aperol Spritz. And depending on where you are in different regions, what they give you with that. So they can give you olives, and when we were in Lake Como, we got like a whole food. We got this pasta dish, and we got olives, and we got chips, and we got this whole array with our Aperol spritzers. So for me, it's that downtime where you actually sit back and become a little bit Italian, where you watch the world go by and you sit there and you talk. And if you just watch the world go by wherever you are, so for me, I love it because it's the middle of the day, it's hot, you're just sitting down, you're relaxing and you're talking, and I think I love it.
Oh, yeah, it's so true. And aperitivo is sort of like morphed into different, into more of a meal actually. So you can get this version called apericena, which is like a meal-based one, which is a buffet of different food that you can go and you order your drink and then you get access to this buffet. It's pretty amazing. But so you can do that instead of dinner. So if you had a big lunch, then you can go out later, and they usually start at around 7 or 8, and you can take advantage of that, and it's sort of a bit lighter. And then there's dinner, which usually starts at about 8, doesn't it? That's early.
That's early because when we were in Puglia early this year, even the aperitivo, we'd sit down, and in Puglia they make special biscuity things. They're sort of savoury that you would have. So everywhere you go in each region has a different type of aperitivo food that you would have. And then you would go out. 8 o'clock, we found that when we were ringing around that 8 o'clock was too early, and the locals from the B&B, when we'd say, oh, can you book us a restaurant? And they'd say, what time? And you'd go 8 o'clock. Oh, that's a bit early. Try 9 o'clock. So we found in Puglia even 9 o'clock was perfect. 8 you can go, but definitely 9, 10, 11. Last sitting can be anywhere between 12 and 1 o'clock in the morning.
So if you're travelling with kids and they're used to, or you just would prefer to eat earlier, then I'd recommend having your lunch as the main meal of the day.
I agree.
And then grab snacks later. And, it's just one of those different cultural things that you need to experience, and it's I think it's fine. I mean, when I was last there, I'm used to eating fairly early now because I've got small children, and it was quite relaxing really to have a later meal, and just really enjoyable to take your time. No one's expecting you to rush through your meal either. So expect your meal to take about 2 hours, and it's part of the experience, I think. So people, the waiting staff will not be rushing, and they'll be there to help you and serve you, but they're not there to rush your meal through, because it's all about the experience of enjoying your food and sitting down and relaxing.
Yeah, I agree. And I think they definitely don't rush you. They want you to enjoy the experience and really be open to asking on the menu. When we were in Puglia too, some of the local stuff I probably wouldn't eat here. So one of the menu items that my husband decided to eat was a ragu cavallo, which as much as I don't like it, it was actually horse.
Yep.
But it is a delicacy there, so they also have it in Sicily. So again, I wouldn't, if you are offended by that, please do not. But there is local delicacy, so ask, because there is things that you won't understand on the menu, and just ask what they are.
Yeah, and just on those regional differences, in Venice they have a concept of cicchetti, which is like Spanish tapas. So these are small bites that you go from bar to bar, and you have different ones like polpette, which are meatballs, or bruschetta, and lots of little different fish dishes. And I love that, actually, because you can go and try different places, and it's really a fun way to see the city. So, just go out, try everything, and really enjoy yourself when you're in Italy, and embrace the local customs, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I love it. So that's a bit about dinner. So, and what about the costs, Katie? What do you think? Like, what would you budget for the meals?
Well, I'm a bit of a foodie, so I probably spend a little bit more on food than maybe a lot of people. But I think, you can eat very well for around, I would say, 30 to 50 euros a day per person. That's all meals and snacks. I think that's a very generous budget. And if you want to go more, higher end, higher scale restaurants, then obviously you can pay a lot more. But if you can even go lower than that, really. You could really eat well for under 20 euro, I think. But a generous budget would be 30 to 50 euro a day. On food. And if you're trying to, save some money, there's a lot of street food options that you can try. And I think, even breakfast, like it's not, I think we were paying like maybe €3 or €4 for a coffee and pastry, which is like, we paid $4 for a coffee in Australia, so.
Yeah. No. And I agree. And I think Italy, where you mentioned before, they have, in Florence, I remember we went there for breakfast, their coffee's €1. So really you can get budgeted or really good food, not even budgeted food. You just can get really good food for not a lot. I think it's just a matter of what you like. I mean, my family and I, we love the Florentini steak when you get to Florence, but that's expensive. So again, look at the local, because if you have like a pesto, that's cheaper.
Yeah.
So the pastas you will find a little bit cheaper, and then you could also have pizza and panzerotti for lunch, which is like a pizza or a bread-based pizza.
Oh my goodness, we tried this one in Rome. It's called a trapezzino, and it's a very new. Oh, it's newish. It's like a new street food that's been invented, and it's basically a pizza pocket.
Oh, wow.
So it's a pizza slice, and it's stuffed with fillings like meatballs, and it's just so good and so tasty. And they're not expensive at all. And let me tell you, that will fill you up for a few hours.
and ask the people where you're staying. Ask your local person that you've met, because we were in Bari and at our Airbnb, at the B&B that we were at, we asked the guy, where would you eat something amazing? And he goes, have you tried the pizza from this pizza place? And he actually gave it to us, and we went there, and it was €3. And honestly, it was the biggest size pizza you've ever seen. So again, you can eat. So I think with cost, I agree. I think it's really up to you as to how much and how little you spend.
That's right. And, one tip I've got from Milan is, and I know you love this one too, is this shop. It's right near the Duomo, and it's called Luini.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. They have these they're basically fried donuts, savoury donuts, aren't they? Yeah, they're called panzerotti, and they are savoury donuts with ham and cheese, and they deep fry them. And I'm not joking. This is like next level street food. It's very good. You need to line up, but the line moves very quickly. Okay, just on the budgeting side of things, what's the deal with the cover charge?
Yes. So you will probably, when you go to Rome or different places, when you get your bill, you would see that there's a coperto. I always get that one wrong. Coperto, which is a service charge. It can be €2 to €3 to €5 depending on what it is.
Yeah, and so that's a service charge, and it's not a tip. It's actually a charge for linen and bread on the table, and you get charged that even if you don't eat the bread, and it's basically just a standard cover charge. and it's a typical, and you're not being ripped off.
No, correct. Yeah.
So, and if you're curious as to what that's going to be, every Italian restaurant needs to publish a menu with their cover charge or their coperto on outside the restaurant, so you can actually see that. Obviously, as we mentioned before, avoid the ones with the pictures, but you can always see the menu with the items in the window, and that leads us to tipping as well.
Yeah.
Do we need to tip in Italy for restaurants?
I don't think so. I think it's a bit like Australia, where the staff get paid a really good salary. We know that it's very different for our American and US residents that are travelling. So it really is up to you. If you think that you've got good service and you think it's amazing, or you got something fantastic, and you really would like to, there's no stopping you. So please do if you want.
Yeah, go
but
ahead,
it's not something that, I suppose from Katie and I point of view, it's not something we do every day.
No. And I think that, so if you get exceptional service or exceptional food and you want to show your appreciation, go right ahead. But a typical tip in Italy would be to round up the bill, or a couple of euros per person. No one's expecting a 15 to 20% tip.
No, exactly.
So, I think it's one of those issues that comes up quite regularly just in conversation, and I think it's worth addressing that so you've got the right expectation.
So, Katie, the other thing we need to address as well when we talk about food is food intolerances, allergies and preferences. I think that's something that, obviously, with the world that we live in now, we've got lots of food allergies. What have you experienced when you've travelled? Because I know you've got a few people that have allergies that you've travelled with.
Yeah, look, I think you just need to be very careful and very aware of, some of the dishes that you're encountering. Generally speaking, Italy and Italians do very well with food intolerances, but you do need to communicate what your intolerances or allergies or preferences are. So as an example, we were in Tuscany a few years ago, and we went out for a beautiful meal. Oh, it was absolutely stunning, in a very small village just outside of Lucca. And it's quite far from the sea there. So my sister-in-law, who is very allergic to seafood, and she was pregnant at the time, she wasn't concerned because, we're far from the sea. Where's this? I'm not going to order any seafood dishes. Anyway, they brought out this beautiful plate of bruschetta with olive tapenade, and she took a bite and her lips started tingling, and she's pregnant at the time. She became very worried and realised that part of the tapenade, they'd had crushed anchovies in there, which is used a lot for flavour. And, so she was, quite concerned. Now, thankfully, everything's okay, and my nephew arrived, and he is a feisty little thing. And so it was all's well that ended well, but it was a big learning that you do need to be careful when you've got allergies. And
my sister-in-law is celiac, and so she's travelled through Italy, and again hasn't had a problem. Obviously, can have the rice and lots of the meats, but again, she does ask and she is careful. And they have a lot of gluten-free pasta as well. So it's the bread more so that she runs into trouble if it's contaminated.
Yeah, sure. So one of the really good tips that I have is to download an allergy translation app, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes. So you can really you don't have to learn the translations, although it is probably a good idea to learn some of those keywords and so you can speak them as well. But if you've got an allergy translation app, they've got all the what you need to say, and they've got it written there, so you can show the staff in the restaurant exactly what you're allergic to, so you don't run into
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And vegetarians, no problem.
No problem.
At all, because the produce that comes out of parts of Italy, like the eggplant and which they call melanzane, there's different things. So the vegetarians well catered for. Tomatoes, there's lots of different things that you can have. So they will definitely be well catered for.
I think, and even vegans too. Like there's some food tours popping up for vegans, particularly in Rome. Again, I'll leave the link in the show notes. If you're a vegan and you want to understand how you can make Italian food work for you, it's probably a good idea to do one of those tours before you head off on your adventures, especially in gelaterias. They always have a vegan option pretty much, because the fruit-based flavours they're sort of naturally vegan.
Yeah, no. And speaking of gelato, isn't
my
it
favourite.
so amazing?
It is. It is great, but it's not, like we were saying before, it's not, you can run into a few problems and get some bad gelato. And I don't wish bad gelato on anyone. Everyone deserves to have good gelato. So I think you need to look for a few things. Do you know what they are, Josie?
No, I've got to say I've got a husband that can always find a good gelateria. So I'm interested to hear what your tips on this one are.
Right. So you're really looking for the artisan producers who use the freshest local ingredients. And I know that's a bit of a cliche, but it's true. So if you see a gelateria, they're usually on the main areas, in the main tourist areas, and you can see them with big piles of gelato, lots of fancy colours and big piles and like fruit sticking out of them, and it's like a big show. You avoid at all costs, basically, because the gelato should be in those steel containers, and usually with a lid on, to keep them at the right consistency, which is that beautiful, smooth, silky texture that is just delicious, and to keep it at the right temperature. When it's all those big fluffy ones, the gelato usually contains a lot of air, and it's not so good. So some of the favourite ones that I know are Pequeno in Florence, and Sabrino, which was amazing. My last trip to Florence was so delicious. I'm still thinking about that salted caramel. In Rome, if you want to go to a really traditional gelateria, go to Giolitti, which is close to the Pantheon, and another one is Fata Morgana, which has a few branches around. But if you're like looking for gelato and you don't know quite where to go, there's two sort of chains that are actually very good. They're not the best, but they're pretty good. Is Grom and Venki, and you'll get gelato there that's better than anything that you'll get at home, basically. So you might as well go for that.
I love the fact that you've really, really gone through every bit of this one.
Yep.
I think that's great.
I have. I've actually got an article on gelato as well. Yeah, but it's I'm kind of obsessed by it. And did you know that there's a gelato university in Bologna?
No, I did not know that.
And a museum.
Wow.
So I haven't been there yet, but I'm going.
Next trip, I think.
Next trip.
So let's summarise, Katie.
Okay. I reckon go with an open mind.
I agree.
Yeah, just open your mind, do try things, eat at different times, just enjoy yourself, and don't restrict yourself either.
So no diet, is that what you're saying?
I say no diet, just relax. You're on vacation.
Do a food tour or 3?
Yeah, well, why not? Go in every place you visit, do a food tour. I mean, it's the best way to get the best food, I think.
I think that sounds fantastic. Well, everyone, thanks for listening. This episode was a taste of more to come. Food is a big part of our travels and also a big part of our life in Italy. And we'd be sharing more about eating in different cities and regions in upcoming episodes.
Buonissimo. I have a feeling they will be our favourite sessions. As always, we've added the links to the resources we mentioned in the show notes. You can find them at Untold Italy /podcast. And this is episode 4.
Coming up in episode 5, we are going to be talking about catching taxis in Rome.
That's really important. I think just getting around Rome, and when you first get there, it can be a bit daunting. So I'm looking forward to that. Everyone, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast to get all the latest episodes as soon as they're released. We're looking forward to seeing you next time. Ciao for now.
Ciao.